If you want to learn how to make a matchmaking system in Roblox Studio, make sure to watch all the way to the end because that's what I'm going to be showing you guys how to do right now. Alright, welcome back to another video, guys. Today I'm going to be showing you, like I said in the intro, how to make a matchmaking system. So, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is grab the kit that is linked in the description. Once you do that, it's completely free. Just click get and you'll have it available. So you're going to click Toolbox in Roblox Studio and click Inventory. Make sure you're on My Models. And then you're just going to click the Matchmaking Kit. You're going to click OK because, yes, there's a script in there. It's a local script, okay? Next, go ahead and ungroup this, and you're going to put the remote event, the update status remote event, in replicated storage in the queue status GUI inside of starter GUI. So this is just a basic remote event and a screen GUI, which is what we're going to update whenever a player joins the queue so that they know what's happening, okay? So now let's go ahead and get into this. So for what I'm doing right here is I'm grabbing an NPC right here, and I'm gonna have like a proximity prompt, so kind of like Bed Wars what they have. So if you want to insert an NPC, you can do that. But the first thing I'll do here is open my NPC, click its head, and insert a proximity prompt. Okay. Next, this proximity prompt we can just name it queue prompt. Okay. And then the action text, we can just say join queue, okay? So, now we have a little prompt that's going to pop up, but it's something super important. Make sure you go into the properties of the queue prompt and click uncheck requires line of sight, okay? What that does is it allows us to look from any angle at the NPC and be able to interact, but also because we're using a head, you'd have to kind of have your camera inside of the head if that was checked, okay? So, next, let's insert a script into that NPC, a regular script, and we'll call this, let's just call this matchmaking handling, okay? Now we're going to define some variables that we'll need. But first, before we do that, I actually forgot, we have to make the place that we're going to teleport to. So if you already have this, you can skip this step. But if you don't, you're going to want to go into View and make sure Asset Manager is checked. So once you have the Asset Manager open, you're going to go to the Places. You're going to double-click Places, and you're going to right-click and click Add New Place, okay? Next, you're going to rename that. We'll just call this Game, and that is going to be the game that they are going to be teleported to for the match, okay? So next, just double-click that place. It'll open up a new Roblox Studio, place. And what you're going to do once that is open, you're going to wait for it to load, and super important, you have to publish this, okay? Otherwise, you're going to get a glitch. I tried this earlier. You just need to click Publish to Roblox. You got to double-click, open it, click Publish to Roblox, and then it'll work. So make sure you do that. Obviously, add what you want here for your game. I'll just go ahead and add like a sword model and put it in Starter Pack. Next, I'm just going to hit Publish again, and that is going to be the game, okay? So I'm going to exit out of this and go back to our lobby, okay? And we're going to go into the script, and the first thing we're going to do is get the game ID. So the ID of the actual game where we're going to have the match. So we'll say local game ID equals to, and then we're going to find this game that we just created or that you already had created. You're going to right click it and click copy ID to clipboard and paste it, okay? So that is the ID for the place. That will allow us to teleport players into it, okay? Next, we need to get the teleport service, so we can say local TPS for teleport service equals to game:get service teleport service. So this gets the teleport service, which will allow us to teleport the players. It's a service that has different functions, such as reserve server, which we're going to use later. Okay, next we are going to say local players in queue equals to open brackets like that. So what this does, this will allow us to store a table of all the players, okay? And we're going to put all the players in there and teleport them through that. Next, a couple more variables. We're going to say local min players. Min players equals to, for me, 1, and local max players for me is 10. So these variables, you're going to set this to however many players are needed minimum to start the match, okay? To actually teleport them in, you got to put the amount of minimum, or the minimum amount of players in the queue right here, and then the maximum amount here. So how many can it have before we need to stop putting people in the queue, okay? So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and set up one more variable. This will be a debounce used later. So we'll say local is matchmaking equals to false, okay? So this is just a little debounce that we'll use later in the script. All right, so first thing we're going to do is set up a function to call whenever we're ready to matchmake. So we can say function matchmake, okay? That's not even a word, is it? But oh well, you know what we're trying to do. So here's where the debounce comes in. We can say if is matchmaking equals true. Actually, we'll just say equals false then. So we're only going to start matchmaking if we aren't matchmaking in the first place. We don't want to call this again if we are already matchmaking, if that makes sense, okay? So next we can say matchmaking equals to true. So now we are matchmaking. We can let the script know we are already working on the matchmaking, okay? Next, what we're going to see is we're going to say repeat, wait, okay? And so if you've never used a repeat until loop, it basically, well, repeats until a certain condition is met. So we can say repeat wait until number of players in queue is equal to min players. So we're going to wait, we're going to keep on waiting until the amount of players in the queue is equal to the minimum amount of players. So we're continuing to wait until there are enough players to teleport them. Okay, so in here, under the wait, what we want to add is actually something to let the players know we're waiting for more players, because it'd be kind of weird if we just stood there. So what we're going to say is we'll say for I, v in pairs, players in queue, do. So we'll just loop through all of the players in the queue, okay? And this table we're going to fill up with people in the queue pretty soon. So we're going to loop through that table, which will have all the players that are in the queue waiting for a game. And we'll say game.replicated storage dot update status. So that's the remote event that came in the kit, colon fire client. So we're firing this remote event to all the players inside of that table. So we'll say v comma, and then this is a variable right here, or I'm sorry, a parameter right here. If you look into queue status text in the local script that came with it, you can see that we have this message parameter. And that's basically just setting the text of this text label right here to whatever we passed through. So you can actually get rid of this function that says print client updated. We don't need that anymore, so do that in the local script. Yeah. All right, let's get back to our script. And inside of these quotation marks, we'll just say waiting for at least, and then we're going to concatenate ... min players, or actually we got to toString that, so we'll say toString min players. Okay, so we're waiting for at least 2 players. Well, I guess it's not going to be 2, for me it's 1. But this is however many, the minimum amount of players you need to start is. Waiting for at least min players, and then we'll just say player, and then you can add an S with parentheses around it, to join the queue. Okay, so if you have if the minimum amount of players is more than 1 for you, you can just get rid of these parentheses. But for me, it's going to be 1, so I don't actually need that. Actually, you don't even need that at all, because if it's 1, that's not even going to need to do this. So forget what I just said. Make this just players, okay? So waiting for at least the minimum amount of players, and we're just saying toString, which just basically makes that number a string so we can concatenate it. So we're waiting for at least the minimum amount of players to join the queue. That's what that's doing, and then it'll fire to all of the players currently in the queue to let them know. Okay, so now outside of this until, so under it, we know that we have already we have the amount of players, because this is going to keep repeating until this condition is met. Okay, so under here, what we can do is we'll just say, if you want, we can add a comment, and we can say enough players to start. And now we're going to loop through, so we're going to say for I equals 1, 15, 0, do. Actually, I'm going to make this 0. I is going to start out as 0, okay? And that was totally my bad. I equals 0, 15, 1, do, okay? So we're going to loop 15 times through, and it's just going to make a little countdown for 15 seconds. After the minimum amount of players, it's going to count down for 15 seconds to allow any more people to join. And you can change this 15 to however many seconds you want it to wait. All right, next we'll just say if number of players in queue is equal to 0, then. So if the players left the game, then because we're going to script that later to remove them from the table when they leave. So if the players in the queue, if there's no more players in the queue, we can just say is matchmaking equals to false. And then we can add a little comment. Players have left the game. And we can just return. So that's going to break out of this function. And it's just going to say, okay, people left the game. We're done matchmaking. Okay, we're going to wait until more people show up. All right, so outside of this if statement, still in the for loop though, we're going to check another condition. We're going to say if number of players in queue is equal to the max players, then we'll just go ahead and break. So what that's going to do is it's going to break out of this for loop and go straight to teleporting, okay? So if we've hit the max amount of players, we're just going to break out of this and go to teleport because we don't want more people to join once we've had enough, okay? All right, next, what are we going to do? Right, we're outside of this if statement. We are going to loop through all of the players. So we can say for underscore, comma, value in pairs, let's say players in queue, do. So we're looping through all the players, and instead of using I right here, I used an underscore because our I is currently storing what our countdown is at, okay? So we're going to loop through all the players, and what we're going to do is we will say game.replicatedStorage.update status : fire client. This will be underscore. Okay, so this is the player that we're currently looping through, comma, and then a string, teleporting in, and then you can add a little parenthesis. I think it looks a little nicer, maybe not, but up to you. Then concatenate out of the string, I'll explain this in a second, to string 15 minus I, outside of those parentheses, dot dot, a close parenthesis, and seconds, and then we can say players in queue. And then again, I'm going to add parentheses in the text. Dot dot, to string, and then we're going to say number of players in queue. Dot dot, string, close parenthesis. So this may seem like a lot, but just make sure you copy this down. What this is doing is it is going to fire the client of each of the players that are currently in the queue, and it's going to update the text of this text label, the status, to say we are teleporting in the amount of seconds left, so 15, or change 15 to however long your countdown is going to be. So it'll update their status saying we're teleporting in 15, change this to however long your countdown is, minus however much we've already been counting down. Seconds, so that'll tell them how long until we're teleporting, and then we'll also let them know how many players are currently in the queue. And then we simply down here want to just put wait 1 because we're going to wait 15 seconds. So every time we loop through, we want to wait a second because, well, that's what we're waiting by seconds. Okay, so now that we've done that, we have finished waiting. It's time to actually teleport the players. And here's how we can do that. What we do is, let's just add a little comment here. Let's say finished waiting, teleporting players now, okay? And what we're going to say is we'll say local server equals to TPS reserve server, and then we will say game ID. Okay, so what is going on here? What is reserve server? Well, reserve server basically creates a brand new private server, and then you just put the ID of the place inside of it. So that's why we needed that place ID for the game, because we need that ID, and then we're creating a brand new private server. And the reason we're doing that is because, well, we don't want to we want to do a matchmaking thing where we're creating a server for all the people in the queue, right? We don't want to teleport everybody into this one server, right? We want to create a new server for those people, right? Those people that just joined. So that's what we're doing with that. Or sorry, the people that just joined the queue. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we'll say TPS teleports to private server. That's how we do this because this reserve server is still a private server, okay? So this is kind of weird how we have to do this. We have to say game ID still. We have to say the place ID even though we have the server reserved. You still just have to do that. And then you say comma and then the server you're teleporting to, which in this case is our reserved server. And that's just called server because we set that variable to be that. And lastly, we'll just say players in queue. So we're teleporting, that's a table of players. So that's how you do teleport to private server. You do the place ID, you do the server, and you do the table of players. So that's how that works, okay? Next, we can just reset our variables. So we can say players in queue equals to, and we're going to set it equal to an empty table. So we're just clearing the table, and we'll say is matchmaking equals to false. So we can do this again. Perfect. Now, we are almost done. Pulling up my notes. Sorry about the rustling of the paper. We're so close to done. We just have to set it up to add people to the queue and remove them when they leave. That won't take too long. All right, so what we're going to do, because we have the script inside of this NPC, we're going to go find that proximity prompt. So we're going to say script.parent, and I know mine's in the head. If yours is not in the head, you're going to need to change this. So script.parent.head prompt, what did we name it? QPrompt.triggered::connect function. So you, with a proximity prompt, and then put player inside the parentheses for the player who activated it. There's a function or an event called triggered, and that just runs whenever this proximity prompt has finished, okay? Now, we can go ahead and say I was looking at the wrong spot. So if not table.find players in queue, comma, player, then, so if we did not find them already in the table, so if this player has not already been added to the queue, then we want to add them. So we'll say table dot insert players in queue, so we're going to add to this table, and what are we going to add? Comma, player. That's what we're going to add to the table. And then outside of this if statement, we'll just say matchmake, okay? So the reason we're doing that is because every time somebody triggers this proximity prompt, we'll just call this, and that's why we have this if is matchmaking equals to false, because we want to make sure that we aren't already matchmaking. Alright, so let's see, I think that's looking good so far. Yep, looks good to me. So let's drop a couple lines and remove them from the table if they're in there. So we can say game.players.player removing :connect function, connect function, and then player inside the parentheses because we want to get the player who left. And then we could just say if table.find player and all that stuff, but for some reason it doesn't really work sometimes. I don't know exactly why. It's probably just something I wrote wrong with my code, but we're going to do it this way because I know this way works. So we'll say for I, b in pairs of players in queue do. So we're looping through all the players that are in the queue, and if v.name equals player.name. Actually, yeah, let's do it this way, because I know that this works. I've already tested this. So if we find the object in this queue that has the same name as the player who just left, we want to remove that. So we'll just say table.remove players in queue, I. And that is it. So you could obviously add different things like a remove from a queue. That wouldn't be too difficult. You just remove them from the table. But let's go ahead and publish this and let's test it out. So you got to test it out on regular Roblox. It does not work on Studio. So let's go ahead and test this out. You can customize this as much as you want, but that's the basics to this matchmaking system. So I'm going to join the server, join the queue to play the game, and let's go ahead and join the queue. Waiting for at least one player to join the queue. So we have a little error. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what that is and fix it real quick. Unable to cast value to object, line 37. So let's look at line 37 of the script. I'm unable to cast value to object. Interesting. Okay. Oh, that's my bad. So I totally wrote the wrong thing. So we have underscore right here in the Fire client. This needs to be value, not the underscore, because the underscore is the player that it's currently looping on. So 1, 2, 3, player 1, player 2, player 3, etc. Okay, so this should be value right here. Line 37 or wherever that is that you say update status, where we say teleporting in, all that stuff. It should say value, comma, and then all this stuff, okay? So let's go ahead and save that. That was my bad. I saw that little highlight and I was wondering what was happening, so sorry about that. But let's go ahead and do this again. We are going to go ahead and play. If we head over here, join the queue, We can see teleporting in 13 seconds, so if we wait, we shouldn't be able to join the queue again. As you can see, the players in the queue still remains at 1. We can't join more than 1 time. So, let's go ahead and wait here. And teleporting in 0 seconds. We should be teleporting any minute now. And if not, we'll go ahead and take a look at the output. So, no errors. Okay, so this happened earlier. I'm wondering what's going on. So sometimes you just need to rejoin the queue. I think it's probably a studio bug, but we're going to go ahead and try it to fix that in just a second. So let's just make sure that this works a second time. 3, 2, 1, 0. We should this time get teleported. Okay, so we're not teleported for some reason. So let's head back to Studio. Let's go back to the script. And what I'm thinking is that it didn't have enough time to teleport us before we reset this. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So, right here, when we do this proximity prompt, when we say if not, actually just right here, right under this proximity prompt .triggered, we'll say if is matchmaking, actually no, sorry, if number of players in queue is equal to the max players, then return end. So if there are already the max amount of players waiting, we're just going to wait until they've been teleported. And then what we're going to do here is we will just say wait 3. Okay? So this is going to wait 3 seconds before resetting the queue. That way, hopefully, it'll give us more time to teleport the players. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and publish it to Roblox, hit play, and try again. So this theoretically should work, hopefully. So let's go ahead and join up again. I think that should be the last bug, hopefully. Alright, so I'm going to join the queue. As you can see, we got 15 seconds. While we're doing that, I'm going to open up the developer console, open up the server just in case anything happens. We have 6 more seconds. If anything happens, we should get an error here, but hopefully this will work this time. 3, 2, 1, 0. There we go, and it's lagging like crazy for me right now, but it shouldn't be. I tested it on my phone. For some reason, my computer doesn't like the teleport. But as you can see, we are in our game. So that is how easy it is to create a matchmaking system, and we can play it again. You can actually test with multiple devices. If you were to join the queue at a different time after we've already been teleported, you'll notice that we don't get teleported to the same server because, well, we've created a private server for all the players that just joined the queue, right? So we're going to do this one more time just to make sure there are no more bugs. But yeah, you're obviously going to want to build up your map and your game more, but this was just the matchmaking part. So let's go ahead and test this one more time. 3, 2, 1, and no, nothing. Oh, I didn't wait long enough. Okay, cool. And we are getting teleported. So it does work. It just takes a little bit of time because that's how Roblox's teleport service is. But there you go. That's how to make a matchmaking system. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do smash that subscribe button, click the like button. Both of those help me out. Before we end, I want to make a shout out to all my Patreons. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you guys, all up on the screen right now. And a special thanks to Unkind Pear for being my $20 Patreon. I really appreciate you. If you want to join my Discord server, link will also be in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again next time.